Okay, and we're going to get into it. Welcome to the UCF podcast. Following an amazing afternoon of fights over in Saudi Arabia, we had Robert Whitaker taking on Ikram Aliskerov. What happened, Clark?
I don't know.
Well, okay, then let me tell you.
Here's what happened. All right, you want to hear what happened?
Yeah.
I'll tell you
I
what
do.
happened if you're interested, if you want to know. Robert Whitaker, Ikram Aliskerov get into that ring together. And what's happening shortly before the sequence that begins the knockout is that Robert throws a left jab, gets kicked by Aliskerov's right leg. And then he fakes a couple of times, and Aliskerov goes for the same kick every time that he fakes the left jab. And so obviously, Robert Whitaker realizes that that's kind of the game plan. He's going to throw a left jab and Aliskerov's going to kick. And of course, timing a kick in that way isn't necessarily unreasonable, but if your opponent can read it that well, you might be in a little bit of trouble, because what Whitaker does is he then fakes the jab, the kick comes up, now Aliskerov is on one leg, and Whitaker just fucking clocks him with a right punch. And I mean, you can litigate the rest of the fight if you want, but essentially it's Whitaker just eats him up, gets him down, he drops him, and then just like pounds him in the head until the ref finally calls it. A beautiful ending sequence, honestly, just like a great fight. As short as it was, I mean, it's a great fight from Robert Whitaker, really impressive. I loved it. It was amazing. What did you think?
You know, sometimes I think being wrong is better than being right. It doesn't happen often, but in this case, I'm pretty happy that I was wrong. I said it in the predictions video. Robert Whitaker is one of my favorite fighters of all time. To see him putting on this sort of a clinic where, like you're describing, like everyone on Twitter is, you know, circle his leg as he throws the kick. Like everyone's breaking down this sequence, but these sorts of things only happen when a fighter is like just a level above, right? I'm going to watch what you're doing. Oh, that's your technique. Okay, I'm going to counter that immediately. We're not going to waste any time. It's going to be minute 49 of round number 1, and I'm going to knock your fucking block off. The right hand that Rob hits Ikram with, he hits him on one leg behind the ear. Ikram is immediately like a baby giraffe trying to stand. Leans up against the cage, and I believe it's an uppercut that finishes him off.
Yeah, he does. He's just doing good. He sees that opportunity for an uppercut, and that's oh fuck, man, that was so good.
Right, and that's exactly. And then the head kick too. Like Rob is the most intelligent finisher probably ever at middleweight. If you watch his shot selection, like the commentary team said the head kick missed, but he bounced it off the back of Ikram's head. And then, watches where he's holding his hands instead of just like winging hooks, feeds him that uppercut and drops him right away. Just the perfect finishing instinct. Rob looked sharp. I'm back on the Robert hype train. Yeah. Bobby Knuckles is back. How could you betray him? How could I betray him?
He called me. He was crying, man. He watched the pod. He was like, why doesn't he like me anymore?
Well, see, that's just the motivation he needed. We were playing mind games.
Okay. I'll accept that.
But yeah, that was our main event, and it was awesome. And Ikram really just didn't. I know we're not talking about him a lot, and that's because all he really did was throw a kick and get knocked out.
Yeah.
I did see some behind the stage sort of interviews with him after the fact, and he seemed like honestly very modest in defeat. He's like, if I hadn't taken this last minute opportunity, I always would have beat myself up for not taking the chance to beat Robert Whitaker. Everything is going along as planned. We'll look at new risks differently in the future. Yeah. So taking the loss in stride, which is always good to see for a younger fighter.
Very reasonable guy. Seemed very humble. I hope he comes back for sure. Like I think he's got something in him for sure. Absolutely. Just sometimes you get your fucking block knocked off.
Absolutely. Well, when you're fighting Robert Whitaker,
that's a risk you gotta have to take.
Yeah. And in our co-main event, things once again did not go as I saw. Sergey Pavlovich did not have it in him to take out Alexander Volkov. A fun piece of the puzzle that I didn't necessarily mention in the predictions video is that these guys are former teammates.
Yeah.
So they both said that taking this fight was kind of difficult for them. Volkov has said in the past that Sergey usually got the better of him in the training room. Did not happen Saturday. Sergey was just not getting into this fight. He was going to have to take 1 or 2 punches at distance to be able to get into range, because Volkov was using his length just the best that he possibly could. A takedown could have helped Sergey out in this fight. And I really hate that I'm saying that about Sergey Pavlovich, because he should not have looked that gun shy. But this is kind of exactly what happened to Francis Ngannou after he lost to Stipe for the title. Just didn't believe in his own power the way that he used to, was very gun shy, took just kind of like a slow loss. But, instead of Derek Lewis throwing jumping switch kicks at you, he had Alexander Volkov throwing these thudding body kicks. If you look, Volkov is weird because like he does have shorter reach than Sergey, even though he's like 5 inches taller. But if you look at the build of Volkov, just unrealistically large limbs, like the thickness on them. So like these kicks are not that fast, but you can just see the impact every time he hits Sergey, and it really slows him down. And sometimes Sergey is coming in, and Volkov is just like throwing like a lazy hammer fist across his face, like just using his weight and gravity to punish Sergey every time he comes forward, throwing lots of straight punches. Sergey was bloodied all to hell by the end of this fight. The biggest moment, honestly, in this fight was after it was done. Volkov went to go hug it out with Sergey, and Sergey's like, "Get the fuck away from me!" And people are all sad on Twitter about it. Oh, former teammates and now they're enemies. But
it is kind of depressing.
Yeah, I mean, it does suck. But Volkov beat the shit out of Sergey, and that really does put him into title contention now. It's him, Cyril Gahn, Curtis Blades, all looking to fight Tom Aspinall, all hoping John Jones just fucks off and gets out of the division, because he's not fighting anybody. He's just wasting time. But a quick look at the stats of this one. Volkov was just ahead in the numbers every single round. And if you look at shot selection as well, Volkov is mixing it up way more. Less than half of his strikes even going to the head, and still having more success with the shots that he landed, still like bloodying up Sergey more than he got bloodied. So really good performance from Drago. Before that, kind of a sad fight though, because I did want the knockout.
It was like a slow kind of plodding defeat where you could tell that there was like no way Pavlovich was ever going to pull it off, but you kind of just had to sit and watch the car crash in slow motion. It really, what we talked about in prediction too, like this guy, he just needs to get in range, and he just never did. Or he would try to get in range, he could hit once and then not advance any further. And it's like, I don't know, it's like the opposite of what he should have been doing, making this kind of like a very sad, slow fight to watch play out like it did. Anyways,
yeah, absolutely.
Talk about Kevin Gastelum and Daniel Rodriguez.
I will. You just reminded me of something though with this fight with Sergey that I do just want to mention real quick. Gun shy is the word. Like gun shy is the word I really want to use, because Sergey was afraid of getting hit. And he was afraid of getting hit because he got knocked out in his last fight. And that's really common. It's just, you're going out there against a former training partner.
He still got hit,
And you still get hit all the time. But he just refused to really take those risks to get into range until it was just a little bit too late in like round 3. And also Volkov using his defenses expertly. Sergey was known for having sharp, accurate hands. I said it in the pre-fight. He only had 34% accuracy on his significant strikes in this one. So yeah, just really, it all fell apart. And speaking of things that fell apart, Kelvin Gastelum's waistline, what happened to that in fight week? What's going on? How come he didn't cut any weight? A question that has a really bad answer.
Winning UFC fights is so easy. Just don't cut weight and then ask the other guy to fight anyways, and he'll say yes like 80% of the time.
Yeah, because he's not getting paid if he says no. Yeah, like he loses his entire paycheck.
It's actually so easy, dude. I could be in the UFC.
Yeah, clearly.
I cannot cut weight. Like that's so easy for me, dude. That's fucking simple.
So the story with this fight is that Kelvin Gastelum, basically on the day of the weigh-ins, just went to the UFC and Daniel Rodriguez and said, "Hey, can we fight at 185 instead?" And Daniel Rodriguez had been cutting to be able to fight at 170 pounds. 15 pounds of extra weight you didn't have to cut is cheating. It's about as bad as purposefully holding on to a submission to tear someone's leg. It's about as bad as like gouging someone's eye permanently. Like it is the scummiest type of cheating. I'm going to like I just can't even. It sucks so bad because I picked Kelvin Gastelum and he did win.
He picks the
He did win
cheaters,
this fight.
folks.
And Kelvin Gastelum wanted this win so bad. You could tell from the second this fight started, he was running into trouble. Daniel Rodriguez was not going away. He was throwing back. If you look at the numbers on this one, it is like really even round after round. Kelvin Gastelum getting 112 out of 238 punches. D-Rod getting 127 out of 265. They're both hitting like 47% of their significant strikes. So they're both, deacon and dodging. If you watch their head movement, like both of these guys mainly throw a 1-2, a jab to their straight. And it was really just a lot of like dipping 1-2s and throwing 1-2s. The big difference in this fight was Kelvin Gastelum's wrestling. And this is where the cheating becomes even more egregious because it actually, in the striking, weight matters a little bit less than in the grappling because extra weight can make you punch harder, but it's just not at the same rate that it makes it easier for you to lay on somebody. So Kelvin Gastelum was eventually able to really turn it up and power through for some like really, really high amplitude takedowns. And as soon as he had D-Rod on the ground, he started opening up with that ground and pound. Kelvin Gastelum is a very like short and squat, wide individual. And when he comes in even heavier and he's going to lay on you in side control and throw elbows, you're just not getting out of there. So Kelvin Gastelum with the dirty dog win, with the fucking renegade win, just cheating as hard as he possibly can and getting rewarded for it.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting about this fight as well, and I don't know, maybe this is controversial, but for some reason, I honestly thought that Rodriguez won round 2, or at least that there's a decent argument that he won round 2. But if you actually go to the judges' scorecard, which they've released, I don't know, 2 of the judges gave every round to Gastelum. I think that's horseshit.
Yeah, I would have to, like, they were really close rounds. I'm not going to get too mad over it.
But I don't know. It's just, I guess like the cheating thing kind of makes me like bald about it a little bit more. Like, come on, like give the fucking 1 round. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that. I will also say that Gastelum was wearing the punches better. These guys were hitting each other just about as often, but D-Rod really did look like he was getting tagged more often with heavier shots. But yeah, Kelvin Gastelum clearly won because he was cheating.
Yeah, there's no real argument. Cheating works, folks. It's that easy. Fuck.
Yeah, just if you can't try hard enough, cheat hard enough.
I'm gonna join the lightweight division, I think.
God, and then speaking of a little bit of cheating, we had a little bit of cheating in
legendary fence grab.
Yeah, the legendary fence grab that does not really get punished when earlier in the evening someone would actually was put on their butt as though they were taken down from grabbing the fence, which is good refereeing. In this case, Mark Goddard decided to give a heavy warning instead and just not give Tricol the position. Yeah, heavy warnings are the dumbest thing that referees ever do. If someone looks like they're going to foul someone and the referee is like warning you, he's a grounded opponent. Hey, don't point your fingers at his eyes. Then it's reasonable. But once someone has started to foul, you got to punish, dude. You got to start punishing. I'm just dead ass serious.
We hate the refs here. And for good reason.
And I will make a small allowance. Okay. No one likes referees in any sport. If you're watching football and your team gets some bullshit penalty call, you're mad. If a hockey player is thrown in the penalty box and you don't think you should have been, you're mad. So whenever you're watching and the referee makes a mistake, it's a tough job. Not everybody has to perform on live TV for their job. So I will give some allowances because I know we go really hard on the refs and the judges here, but this wasn't like the worst possible.
This didn't really affect too much the outcome of the fight. I don't think that Tricoli was gonna turn it around or something. It just, I don't know. Even in those situations, it feels like there should nonetheless be a consistent amount of punishment, I guess, for doing shit like that.
Absolutely, and I am gonna kind of just throw Tricoli under the bus here because. Watching these fights live, my one friend wanted the stats sent to him after to see just how few punches Tricoli threw. He was just a giant compared to Shara Magomedov and looked to want to grapple. And after a few attempts, he kind of just got pieced up at range up until we got to that knockout. Shar Magomedov getting a performance bonus. The biggest thing that I want to just mention from this fight is that Shara has some of the best kicks I have seen in the UFC. I thought he would have had a Taekwondo background because of how light he was on his feet with these kicks. Throwing like a jumping hook kick to the head that hits. Like that's the sort of stuff that makes me stand up. But no, he has a former career in, for starters, soccer, then boxing, then Muay Thai, then MMA. Shara did get his $50,000 bonus, so I'm going to throw a little bit of shade at him. Shara is the Dagestani dude who assaulted a guy in public for putting his arm around a girlfriend. And Shara did not immediately win that fight. The random Russian dude gave as good as he got. I don't know if I mentioned that in the pre-fight, but I always just want to throw that out there that Shara is the type of guy who would assault you for kissing your girl in public. So
Shit.
I kind of hope he loses in the future, but there you go. He looks good, so he's probably not gonna.
Yeah, well, he looks pretty. I mean, the issue is that this is the fight where like there was a replacement. Truckley is like the shortest term replacement that he possibly could have been. So I don't think he was really going to win this fight in any scenario. They just kind of needed a warm body in there for Magomedov to punch.
Yeah,
did his best. Unfortunately, his best was not very good.
No, not at all. And I will say, when they were marching Tricoli into the ring, I was like, hold up, did they screw up? Because this guy is gigantic. He is 6'5" at middleweight. He looked like way bigger. He looked a little bit stronger at the beginning with the grappling, but pretty quickly he seemed to wilt under the lights and just started to get beat up. But yeah, that's most of what there was to say about that fight. Look, we have another performance of the bone. Performance of the night bonus.
Night.
That's right.
We got bonus.
We got lots of them because 1, 2, 3 KOs and 1 submission. Like this, there was a lot going on in this card. Let's get into probably the second best knockout of the night. Some would say the best. Johnny Walker versus Volkan Ozdemir. I called the hell out of this one over pretty much immediately as soon as Volkan realized that he could both hit and hurt Johnny Walker. Just started throwing some hooks, wobbled him, knocked him out on the fence. And one of those follow-up punches is when Johnny Walker is just barely holding on to consciousness. And Ozdemir wants to just doubly make sure that he's getting that win bonus.
Like imagine that you're like there, like that's you on the ground, you're lying down, your head is like technically up, and that you just see the fist of Ozdemir coming. That's like your life go before your eyes, like just Jesus Christ. It's such like a comical Looney Tunes ass ending. But I mean, it was just beautiful. It was beautiful, honestly. Ozdemir, it looked great. Walker, the chinless man, somehow fighting in the UFC.
Yep. Well, and I mean, the thing is with Johnny Walker, if I like just quickly go look at him, he is currently on a loss streak. He had his no contest against Magomedov. Then he got KO'd by him, and then he's got KO'd by Volkan Ozdemir. But like before that, he's beating Anthony Smith. He's knocking out Paul Craig. He's submitting Ian Kutabala. Like this is kind of the just goofy nature of Johnny Walker. Is he going to show up and be this like physical freak, or is he just immediately going to get knocked out? It's hard to say sometimes. But yeah, really happy for Volkan. And Volkan, it's always funny to see him getting interviewed by Daniel Cormier, because there was a time when Volkan Ozdemir showed up at 205 and there was just no talent that could fight John Jones or Daniel Cormier. Those two guys were at the top of the division. No one was even close. And the UFC was just hunting for guys to be able to get a title shot. And Ozdemir had like 3 first-round knockouts against older guys whose chins were starting to go. And they're like, he's a KO artist. Get him in there. He's fighting DC for the belt. And he was like submitted round 1 or 2. So it's always just funny, like when DC now, like fat, old, retired DC is interviewing Volkan. And it's like, I bet Volkan wishes he could run that back right now. You know?
Round 2, baby.
Round 2. But no, awesome win for Vulcan. Before that, getting into our
Now
prelims.
we're getting to the mauled part of the podcast.
Yeah, we're getting into some of the maulds. So the main card was awesome because we had so many finishes and the judges couldn't try to steal legitimate wins from non-Muslim fighters. Jared Gordon was not my pick. I picked Nasrat Haqparast.
We both picked Haqparast, but I think we both agree that this might have been a little bit of a robbery.
It really was. Going round by round, Haqparast gets round 1 easily. Rounds 2 and 3 go to Jared Gordon. I don't think almost anybody disagrees. This seems pretty clear to me. Jared Gordon was advancing and landing the heavier punches, especially in round 3, was mixing in the grappling, was tiring out and slowing down Haqparast. In the pre-fight, I talked about how Haqparast was the faster guy with a little bit more pop on his punches, but Gordon really wore on him in round 1 and kept advancing through rounds 2 and 3 to slow him down and get to a point where, for every 1 or 2 fast punches that Haqparast is throwing, Gordon is throwing 3 or 4 heavy, thudding, slow punches. But he was just getting into range, slowing down his opponent, and making them land. This is the second fight that Jared Gordon won that was stolen by the judges in like 2 years. Jared Gordon is just getting fucked in ways that just, it ain't fair, dude. It ain't
something
fair.
Horrible in a past life, clearly.
Must have.
Yeah, make sure to put those judge scorecards on the screen, by the way.
Oh God!
Just present them without comment.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. It's
a tough fight. It really does feel like, a little bit of we'll give it to the guy from Morocco instead of the guy from the United States just because of the location. I mean, and like honestly, kind of a side note, but the crowd didn't seem really into the whole thing for very much of it. Pretty quiet. Just seemed like a bunch of like Saudi princes that were kind of just bored. So like maybe this was an attempt. I mean, like obviously wouldn't have been that deliberate, but if you were going to give someone a win, it kind of makes sense at that point, just before the main card, maybe to hype some people up. I don't know. Completely conspiracy thinking, but
it's it does suck, and I am willing to be a little bit conspiratorial, considering
you don't do that.
No, considering that the non-Muslim fighter got punished for a fence grab, the Muslim fighter didn't get punished for a fence grab, and you had 2 robberies against the non-Muslim fighters. But it's a Saudi Arabia card. Hopefully next time's better. They said they'll bring in women next time.
Women?
What? But
hold on a second.
Before that, Felipe Lima versus Muhammad Naimov. Lima showed up. We showed a picture of what he looked like in the pre-fight podcast. He normally fights 10 pounds lighter than what he was fighting at, and none of that mattered, dude. Lima was lightning fast, very strong. The speed was the big thing. The speed was the really big thing. I was talking about how Haqparast was faster than Jared Gordon, just not even in the same ballpark as Lima Naimov here. Naimov, often you could tell that he was just kind of going to grit his teeth and walk forward because he knew he was going to get hit by like 2 or 3 punches or kicks that he just wasn't going to see coming. And he was trying to just throw real heavy punches, trying to implement a lot of the game plan Jared Gordon was. But the difference is that Lima was a lot faster and he was a lot better rounded than Haqparast. On the feet, he had a whole bunch of success. And as soon as he got onto Naimov's back, because Naimov was trying to mix in the wrestling when he was getting pieced up on the feet, as soon as Lima got on the back, he punched in that choke arm. And it's like even his submission, like snapping up the neck, was fast. Yeah. And it was over as soon as he had that arm under the neck. It was such a squeeze. Really impressive victory.
It was really good. I hate to say it. Well, no, I don't. But I'm really glad that he did submit him in round 3. Got a little nervous because I was like, I feel like this is another one where maybe maybe those judges would have gone the other way on it. But it was. Lima looked really good, really fast. Sometimes those unknowns, sometimes those mystery fighters, they really do have a lot going on. This is a guy that was really impressive to watch him fight. I'm excited to see more from him, honestly.
Absolutely, me as well. And something to note again, and this is just like talking about both intelligent defense, but also the speed at which Lima is running. We have a significant strike accuracy of 52% for Lima in this fight, 35% for Naimov. He just wasn't where he thought he was going to be when he was throwing punches. And that's fun. I'm interested whether or not Lima's going to stay at 145 or if they're going to let him fight at 135 now that he's done his late replacement debut in the UFC.
He's paid the toll.
Yeah, he's paid the toll at featherweight. Maybe he likes the way he felt at featherweight. Who knows? But yeah, looking forward to seeing the Jungle Boy again.
All right, let's go, buddy. I'll go get like a glass of water.
Yeah,
you can mull about this.
You grab a glass of water while I fucking yell about Rinat
I'll turn your volume down.
Fakhretdinov versus Nicholas Dalby. I'm not going to yell. I'm not going to yell.
I know it's we're just telling jokes.
I am 100% convinced that Nicholas Dalby won this fight, and I'll tell you why. Number one, advancing and more aggressive, pushing the action. Number two, takedowns that don't work and you continually get punished and punched for attempting them are not winning you the fight. Number three, I would give Rinat round one based on the knockdown that he got on Dalby. From that point on, he never hurt Dalby. Dalby continuously hit Rinat and rocked him a couple times. Dalby was, bouncing on one leg, punching him. He got back to his feet an enormous amount of times. Dalby was also able to control Rinat up against the fence using an underhook and then reaching over to grab Rinat's arm to be able to tear him off of the fence, to get himself off of the fence. And this is all on top of, for 15 minutes, having like the presence of mind to be able to, like, if you were watching this fight live, they were talking about the breathing of Nicholas Dalby. He's taking deep breaths in and like heavy deep breaths out every 2 seconds, and he's forcing himself to, and he's not slowing down at all. Wrestling with the Dagestani, just like I said in the pre-fight, he did everything possibly right to win this fight against a guy with physical advantages over him, who was like 7 or 8 years younger than him, who had a power advantage. Nicholas Dalby did literally everything right in this fight to be able to win, and the judges gave it to Rinat Fakhretdinov. to Rinat
Fuck. Not his name.
But yeah, I don't know. Like Rinat didn't look bad. I will say that. But the only adjustment he made throughout this entire fight was starting to wrestle when he realized he was going to get his ass whooped on the feet. And just for the judges to like not, and this was, I'm pretty sure this was a split decision. Yeah, so at least one of the judges knew what he was talking about. And also looking at like the actual like landed numbers, Dalby very clearly starting to run away with it in rounds 2 and 3. Rounds 3 not having that many punches because Rinat is unsuccessfully trying to wrestle Dalby and getting pulled off, landed on, and then having to re-engage with the wrestling, and Dalby continuing to turn him away. Like I just,
here's the issue.
I was very livid while it was happening.
You want to hear the issue?
Sure.
I come back from getting a glass of water. Here's the thing. This is my argument. The issue, perhaps at its core, is that, damage-based scoring system. You know what I mean? You ever heard of a damage-based scoring system? And
of course.
Most of Dalby's strikes, where he clearly was ahead, was in the clinch. And it's not that clinch strikes can't do damage. Obviously they can. Obviously they have. But you don't have the full, weight of your body behind it, the twist your hips, etc. And he's definitely out striking Fuck in those instances. But he's not necessarily doing that at distance, right? He's doing good at distance.
Objection.
He's doing good at distance, but he's not. Objection. He's not. Okay, whatever. You're objecting. What do you got? You got something to say?
Yeah, I do have something to say. That percentage that you're seeing in the clinch is not because he's trying to clinch wrestle Rinat. It's because Rinat is constantly trying to push these wrestling engagements, and then Dalby would reverse position and beat him up against the cage before separating to try to open up on him on the feet.
No, yeah, absolutely. But
like, so Fakhretdinov is in those clinches doing nothing but wrestling. Whereas Dalby was wrestling and landing punches.
But it's just, if you go by the numbers, right?
Yeah.
He's getting more clinch punches than he is. He's got like 10 less distance punches, right? Like that's where he's succeeding, is in the clinch. And if you want to talk about a damage-based scoring system, perhaps some of the judges didn't think some of those clinch punches, well, they were nonetheless real punches. They didn't think they were doing the same damage that distance punches were doing, which he didn't. He didn't have the advantage in. You know what I'm
But
saying?
again, like just to be clear, a lot of Renat's at distance punches are coming in round 1, which I gave to him anyways. What I'm talking about is rounds 2 and 3 because we do
Yeah.
this round by
Well,
round.
no, for sure. But I mean, you go to round 2, I think that clearly Dalby wins. You go to round 3, I don't know, do 17 significant strikes to 18 significant strikes.
But again, that's why I specifically bring up the wrestling point, because if you're attempting takedowns that you don't get, or your opponent immediately gets to the feet and starts fighting you, you're not winning the fight.
He
And
did win though.
yeah, but he didn't.
I mean, this is one.
We're gonna disagree on
No,
this
no,
one. I thought
it's like
Dalby
fine.
fought,
I do agree though.
yeah,
Dalby looked really good. I
it's just
enjoyed the fight, but like, yeah, I don't know. And it's just because I picked for that. If I picked Dalby, I'd probably completely agree with you, honestly. But I kind of see it from the other perspective, I guess, where maybe it's those clinch punches just weren't doing enough damage, and so that's how the judges went scoring. Anyway, put the scorecard up on this one too. Let people get mad at that.
oh, absolutely. Before that one, we had Muin Gafrov versus Kyung Ho Kang. Mr. Perfect was not perfect, and Tajik was fast and pretty accurate with his punches. If you look at the numbers, the striking numbers of this one, it's really kind of sad that Ho Kang was both taller and longer and just could not hit Gaffarov.
Just couldn't pull it off.
Gaffarov was fast, though. He had very sharp strikes when he started throwing. He's just a little bit too reckless. And a couple of times he did actually lose position or end up in some tricky spots because he was just throwing with a whole bunch of negative intention. He clearly wanted the knockout. But if you're looking at like round number 3, where his opponent is getting 0 of 8 strikes,
Yeah.
This was pretty one-sided.
The issue with this one, and why I picked Kang, which was my biggest mistake, can't bet against Central Asia. But the reason I picked him is because I figured that his wrestling would be better. And he had Gaffarov in a dangerous situation a couple of times. But the issue is, you look at his attempted takedowns, he got 27%, 3 of 11. If you're going to be doing wrestling, you got to fucking, get some more accurate takedowns, right? In fact, in the full fight, you're only getting 3 significant attempts at doing what presumably your game plan is, which is to submit this guy. I mean, Gaffarov was pretty reckless. I feel like against a sharper wrestler, he's probably going to get absolutely just cooked. But the fact that Kang couldn't capitalize on that, not looking great in my opinion. This is obviously just Gaffarov just ate him up on the feet, because Kang had no stand-up game at all, really, especially by round 3, where he's tired himself out doing wrestling unsuccessfully, trying to do takedowns unsuccessfully. It is just, yeah, this was rough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And another thing just to mention, when you see a guy throwing like 11 takedown attempts and he's just throwing the same like bad takedown every time,
Yeah, I don't
he's
know.
not mixing it up, he's not giving the other guy a different look. Oh yeah, just defend the same takedown.
You're like getting better. You're like, Gaffarov is like training against this takedown. He's so good at this by the end of the fight.
Pretty much. I mean, like if you look like three that you get versus 8 that he stuffs, you should probably be mixing it up.
Yeah.
Before that one, we had Magomed Gachizulov. You know what?
Gadz Yalusilov.
Yeah, like that. Versus Brenson Ribeiro. Too bad Ribeiro lost because his name's easier to say. This one was pretty slow. Not a whole big bunch happening. One judge actually called this a draw, which I disagree with, but there wasn't a whole big bunch going on.
But, decision majority is cute. You don't see those every day.
The total strikes in this fight between both guys is just barely over 100, and that's including the pitter patter on the ground sort of stuff. Very slow fight. Not a lot happened. Brenson Ribeiro did not look good. Magomed Gachi. Okay, I'm going to say it once. I'm going to say it right. Gadzhiesulov looked good at times and looked really afraid of getting hit at other times. So not 100%. I'm not sold on him yet. We'll have to see him again before I'm willing to pick him against like a good opponent. Before that, our very first fight of the night, we had Cheng Ho Lee versus Zhao Long. This was actually not technically an official UFC fight.
Really?
Yeah. So as they walked them in, because this was one of like the early Fight Pass prelims, they said that this is the finale to the road to the UFC. So,
oh yeah, he's wearing like shorts. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So And this is kind of little tangent. If you've stayed this long, like listening this long in the pod, maybe you'll find this interesting. So they've replaced the old gloves recently. At the last pay-per-view, they switched them, and the new gloves were supposed to be better for eye pokes. Nope, not at all. It seems like the number one improvement that they made on these new gloves is that there is no seam on the outside, because very rarely guys would get cut by like the stitches on the outside of the UFC gloves. So they've made it so that all of the seams are like on the palm of the glove, so that'll stop unnecessary cuts. That would be a nice little bonus. But the big reason that they changed the gloves, I'm not even joking, is for branding. Because when these guys walked out, they're wearing Road to the UFC gloves. They don't get their UFC gloves yet. So the main purpose of the new glove system is branding. So Zhao Long and Cheng Ho Lee are walking out wearing like the blue Road to the UFC gloves. And the commentary team is like, not technically a UFC debut, even though you're fighting in Saudi Arabia and I'm watching you as an early fight pass prelim on a UFC fight night. Not technically in the UFC yet. This fight was fun though, and it was actually pretty awesome all 3 rounds. Cheng Ho Lee wanted to call himself the Korean Khabib. I have never seen Khabib fight an entire fight throwing nothing but body knees, and I have to say that is possibly the most brutal way to lose a 3-round decision, because Zhao Long must be pissing blood right now.
Probably.
It's been like but a mere 28 hours since he was kneed. Like
his kidneys are like fucking grapefruits right now.
Right, like 68 significant strikes, 64% of those are knees to the body. Brutal, dude. Just brutal.
Just so many knees. I didn't even know Road to the UFC existed. Fake ass fan over here. It is a recurring mixed martial art event in which top Asian MMA prospects compete to win contracts with the UFC.
Yeah, like the UFC just desperate to not.
Finale. I know, like, I'm sorry, dude. That's kind of, I feel like that's kind of messed up a little bit. I don't know. Like, yeah, like we're going to put, like, you're not even in the UFC. We're putting you on. If you win this, you get like a contract. I know that's kind of just how a lot of these things function, but like, fuck, man, I don't know. Give these guys like an actual contract if you're going to have them on a fucking fight night.
Yeah. Well, and God, I can only imagine what they're actually making too. Zhao Long looked really good as well. Like, I should mention that the Cheng, this was a really close fight. And
I honestly think
it was a split decision.
Yeah, like it was split. I think it could have. That's because I picked Long, but also because I don't know. I think he probably could have won a couple rounds. Not round 2. Round 2 is definitely Lee's, but maybe round 1. Come on.
Yeah. But this was a good fight. Both of these guys deserve to be in the UFC. They're bantamweights. Ooh, actually, matchup Cheng Ho Lee against Philippe Lima if Lima goes back down to 135. You're welcome, Sean Shelby. I just made the matchup for you.
Yeah, you gotta start asking for compensation when you do those.
Yeah, clearly. Oh man, and also, not this week, but someday soon, hopefully, tweeting live with the fights. Hoping to get some lame takes on TV, folks.
Yeah, you look in that corner, you might see things that we've thought of in there.
Like, maybe. Dalby definitely won that fight,
like
dumbass.
Dalby won, and like a picture of Francis crying attached.
Bawling, even. But yeah, this has been the first trip to Saudi Arabia. Some big takeaways were that it rocked that the UFC is willing to put on good fights for lots of money, lots of Saudi oil money. After the event, the Saudi prince was actually there, and he was saying, you know, I'm surprised. I'm surprised people stayed till 2 a.m. and we have like 12,000 people in here. I'm actually really surprised. Next time,
women in.
Yeah, he says next time we'll have women fighting, and next time I want 20,000 people in here. And Dana White is just like salivating beside.
Dana White, you can like see like sweating. His nipples are a little erect.
Just red as can be. So yeah, I expect them to go back to Saudi Arabia, and when they do, it's probably going to be a kick-ass fight card. And we'll be joining you guys a little bit later in the week to give you our predictions for the next pay-per-view. No Conor McGregor this time, a better fight. It'll be Pereira versus Prochazka 2. Could be the best fight of the fucking year, depending on how long it takes Pereira to knock out Prochazka. We'll see you then.
I'll catch you there, boys. Don't forget, love women.
love women.